So good to see you.
I'm so glad to have you. Ladies, when we talk about having someone who is truly a badass, that is Heather. And so I am extremely excited to introduce you all to her and to jump into this conversation as we talk about um, people who have a lot going on. This is Heather, but she's going to really show us how to do so with grace and ease and to be in the weight loss space that we want to be. So, Heather is the owner of Weight Breakthrough. She is also a licensed CPA and the mayor of, okay, I want to make sure I say your town right.
Atascadero.
Atascadero. All
Yes.
right, California. And so if anybody understands like having a lot on her plate, it would be Heather. It would be Heather. And so she's going to come in today and really break down um, what are basic things that we are able to do to really get our weight under control. And that's for so many of us, especially those of us that are overachievers. You find that you're succeeding in one space, but perhaps not doing so well in another. And Heather is here today to really help us um, figure this out and to understand what our secrets are. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my goodness, as it relates to being an overachiever, I think that you check the boxes, friend.
I know I was just thinking, do I need to talk to Heidi? I don't think I'm an overachiever, but possibly I possibly I
Uh
am.
yeah, yeah. As I look at your information, I'm like, oh, check, check, check.
Okay, yeah, then I'll be reaching out to you because the things you talk about really resonate with me and my audience too. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
appreciate
I mean,
that.
there certainly is crossover, right? Because what's happening in here shows up in here,
Mhm. Yeah.
definitely. And so just want to kind of jump in today and really, I know that you have a lot of good juiciness, what I call juicy and deliciousness for our audience today. And, weight loss is just one of those things. It's one of those things that as women in particular, it just can be something that just leaves us so very frustrated, so frustrated. So I wanted to jump in and to ask you, number one, why is it that even when we know what to do, we know, I have right here with me my water, and I'm like, okay, I know to drink more water, know what to do to be healthy, but I just don't always do it. Why?
Yeah.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
I think that's one of the most frustrating things for people. And it's not just in the realm of health and weight loss, but really all areas of life. So,
True.
like we say, we want more peace and then we overschedule ourselves. Or we want to lose weight and then we end up at the bottom of a carton of Ben and Jerry's. So we do it a lot. We have the know-how, or at least like, where is it? Here's my device. We have these devices that, in an instant, we can grab all of that know-how, but we don't necessarily follow through. And sometimes, even worse is we do the opposite of that. And that's really because we have these two aspects of our brain that are in conflict most of
Mm,
the time. So we have our prefrontal cortex, and that's that executive functioning part of our brain. That prefrontal cortex has our best interests at heart. And our prefrontal cortex has an idea and appreciation and can plan for the future.
mhm,
So that's this one part of our brain that is really the most like cognizant to us. Like we're in that quite a bit, especially during the day. And then we have this other part of our brain, the primitive brain. I like to think of it as the toddler running around with scissors. And that toddler is really interested in short-term gratification, right? Cotton candy, cartoons. I don't want to go to bed. So when you have those two parts of your brain battling, if you've ever seen a toddler wear down the parent, you can start to understand on a very basic level why we seem to make decisions against our own will.
mm. I have four kids. So yes,
You
I
have
have,
four primitive brains running around, plus your
yeah,
own.
right, 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 exactly. And I have been in that space, but it's interesting when we see it externally and internally, and sometimes it's just like, I just don't have the energy for the fight. Like, goodness gracious, right? Yeah, yeah. And I do think that as we, we're becoming more aware of things as we have more information, but the awareness doesn't fix it.
No,
The
no, it
awareness
doesn't
does
make us follow through.
no, no. So, okay, I got I see it. I see these two parts of our brain in this space of Overachievers Anonymous. We talk about that amygdala being hijacked, right? And once it's hijacked, right, then that's the toddler takeover.
Toddler takeover. I like it.
The toddler takeover, right? And so then we just want it fixed. We just want to feel
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And we, as our subconscious, just reaches for the thing that's always worked. And the Ben and Jerry's worked last time, and by golly, I bet it'll work again this time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, those are great analogies. So how is it even possible? Number one, if it is possible, how can we stay consistent doing the things that we need to do here in Overachievers Anonymous? It's in our name. Like, we're busy. We have a lot of things going on. How do we continue to make good choices when it seems so hard?
Yeah, it comes down to learning how to manage your mind and rewire your brain. It's super easy.
Yeah. No, 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 no. These are things that we talk about in here all the time. Yeah, rewiring our brain, coming to 2.0, you but 2.0.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
2.0. Well, what I'll do is I'll kind of break it down into like a four steps. And what we have to realize is whatever result we have in our space. So, for example, if someone's carrying excess weight, that result comes from a behavior.
Mhm.
And this is where most people get stuck as they focus on that behavior and they're kind of in that doing mode. But what they don't realize is behavior is caused by how we feel.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes.
and that drives our behavior. And then how we feel, like that comes from our thoughts and the beliefs that we have. So that's kind of this layered. So you're like, yeah, I know, I know.
No, I love it. I love it because it's just a different way of having the conversations that we have here. So I'm like, yes.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
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 So if we think about it, it begins with thoughts, right?
Mhm.
We've got thousands of them every single day, most of which we're unaware of. The ones that are really prevalent become these beliefs that we carry around. And then those thoughts will lead to a feeling. So now we're going forward. And the feeling, whatever you're feeling at any given moment, can be traced back to a thought. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or defeated, it's because you're thinking something that's creating overwhelm or the feeling of defeat.
Yeah. And your
Important to
feet.
know that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And so I remember a client one time leaves this message for me and she says, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to make it to our group session tonight. I'll catch the replay. I'm just being pulled in 100 different directions." And I called back and I left a message and I just challenged her, like kind of recommending that she consider the thought, "I'm pulled in 100 different directions." Like, how does that feel?
Mhm.
Because that's just a thought. It's not literally true.
No. No.
And our conversation later was her being able to see like, oh, I realized how I was creating more anxiousness and overwhelm for myself in that moment. And doesn't mean she would have done anything different. She may still not have come to the group session, but she would have come at things from a very different energy and felt completely different about what she was doing.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
That for my ladies, that should feel very familiar, right? Because it is about taking control of the narrative. What is the
Mhm.
story that you are telling yourself?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Exactly.
And we get stuck in these narratives that don't serve us and are not true. And it's like, girl, why are you doing this to yourself? This is not, but I do think, and I would ask you to for your clients and just for all of us that are going on this journey, that we just become so accustomed to the pain.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
become so accustomed to the pain and it becomes our identity. And in as much as we want to be a size 6, we become accustomed to the reality of us that is wrapped in the pain and the weight just comes with it.
Yes, and so there's a couple of things is when we get to this place of, oh, I want to do something about it, we go back to that behavior, that third step, right? Thought, feeling, behavior, result. So we're all focused on the behavior of what do I eat, exercise, sleep, drinking water, all the things. But that requires a lot of willpower to be able to just push through. And it's a short-term energy source. So unless you figure out how to actually drive your behavior in a way that is going to be much more natural and invigorating to you and energizing, it doesn't work for long. And something you brought up, I think I read a book several years ago by Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she talks about the brain and how emotions are made. And one of the things she talked about was your brain wants, go back to like one of the things our brain wants is things to be easy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so it looks at past experiences and it selects, as she phrases it, a winning instance. So when I think about weight loss, I have clients come to me who have all of these experiences that their brain has looked back and said, didn't work, failed, lost weight, regained it, fell off the wagon, got off track, couldn't do it. And so the brain looks at all those and goes, oh, winning instance, I don't lose weight. So it's kind of like your brain is going to Vegas and betting on, I'm not going to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the winning instance.
It feels better.
And it feels better. It feels true. And so we just go with that without even questioning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, because this is really so juicy. It feels better because it feels comfortable. And to change it means to change me. And I've been doing this for so many decades. I've had people that'll say, I don't even know who I am without ... I don't know who I am without these 20 pounds. I don't know who I am without this pain. I don't know who I am without these stories.
Yeah.
And so what we're asking is for an identity shift. And that's a big ass ask.
Big ass ask.
It's a
100%.
Ask. Yeah.
Well, and because it does feel so true because you have all of this proof.
Evidence. Mm-hmm.
Evidence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All the proof, all the evidence. And so it really, but I think when we can look around and see there are many people that have done that, there's at least the ability to say like, ooh, it's possible. If it's possible for them, maybe it's possible for me too. Like you start to open that possibility up.
Mm-hmm. So can you walk us through some of the ways that so many of us, well-intentioned, end up sabotaging ourselves because we are stuck in this easy, right? Like we're like, you know what? I know how to do this. I remember talking to a friend and she was wanting to make some big life changes, which included up-leveling her appearance. It included losing weight and perhaps finding a partner. Mm-hmm. And I remember one day she came over to my house and she's like, I don't want to do it. It's too much work. I don't want to do all of this.
Yeah.
And she literally kind of checked out. And I was like, but on the other side is health and love and more success and all the things. And she's like, yeah. So, what are some specific ways that we tend to sabotage ourselves?
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll kind of give you what I call a mindset audit, because this gives people a chance to go through and say like, ooh, where does that specifically show up? And so there's kind of 3 steps to it. And the first one is to be able to recognize your excuses. And I think our brain kind of likes to play tricks on us. I mean, not because it has ill intent, but without intentional guidance, one of its base desires, and you hit on this, Heidi, is to just do what's easy.
Yeah.
Right. It wants to avoid pain, seek pleasure. It wants to do what's easy. So without the guidance, it just is going to want to not change. Mm-hmm. So when you start new healthy habits, I don't know if you notice this, but like your brain is really uncomfortable. And so sometimes the minute you start to change, like the excuses start to pop up. Mm-hmm. Like your sweetie brings home ice cream, or you're at the office and they bring in fast food that you didn't expect. Right? Anybody, like, put excuses in the chat if you resonate with this, because it's just, it's almost nonstop. And it's totally normal. This is what we have to realize. The excuses are normal, but you have to identify them because you've got to, there is sometimes a genuine reason for not following through. But an excuse can sort of dress itself up to look like a genuine reason. And
Woo!
you've got to be able to discern those two.
An excuse
um,
dressed up to look like a genuine reason.
yeah,
Ouch.
yeah. And then if that's the case, you don't even recognize the excuse. It's just like, well, of course I can't. There's no other choice to make.
Mhm.
Right. And when that happens once or twice, back to that, winning instance, you're like proving to yourself, oh, yeah, it doesn't work. I can't follow through or whatever. And then you just fall off track. You just stop doing it. So, step one is to recognize the excuses. The step two for the audit is to identify your limiting beliefs. And so, we talked about beliefs quite a bit. And as we talked about, your thoughts are running the show. So, whatever you believe about yourself, your body, your ability to lose weight, all of those past attempts, how it influences your future, all of that controls what you do or what you don't do.
Mhm.
And excuse me. So, if you don't recognize these limiting beliefs, or you maybe recognize them, but you just think they're true, you're going to play that out. Your brain wants to be right. And if you're thinking, believing, ruminating on things that are unhelpful, that are, let's call them negative, if you will, then your behavior will follow it. Of course, therefore, your result does too.
Mhm.
So we've it really comes in the recognition, because like the excuses, things can just feel true. And it takes really being honest with ourselves to ferret out, like, okay, maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the third step then, and you hit on this a little bit earlier, is learn the stories that you're telling yourself.
Mhm.
Your stories kind of create your identity. It's how you behave in the world. It includes your habits. So, for example, for years, I had a story that I was a chocoholic. I mean,
Mhm.
and I had it was since high school. This is who I was. I remember the first time that I went almost half a day, like 11 a.m., without eating chocolate. Headache. Yep, chocoholic. So this contributed to me for decades eating chocolate every single day, and sometimes a pretty fair amount of it. And these stories we simply believe, and if unchecked, we just continue to play them out. So anybody else relate to that story? Give me a story in the chat. No, tell me I'm not alone. Um,
You're not alone. You're
but
not
yeah,
alone.
when you don't identify them, you just continue with the habits that the stories predict, right? Eating chocolate. Of course, I eat chocolate because that's just, I get a headache if I don't. I'm a chocoholic. Ha ha, isn't that funny? But life is just simply on rinse and repeat. It doesn't change. No matter how much you want to lose weight, you're not going to be able to overcome an unrecognized story that is yielding a different outcome, seemingly against your own will, right?
Mhm.
Because it just feels true. But in fact, it is totally optional. And then, in a sense, stories can kind of let us off the hook. I don't have to try something new. Like, our brain's trying to protect us, keep us safe. So those are some ways that, if you go through those three things, the excuses, the limiting beliefs, the stories, and really get honest with yourself and figure out um where are things popping up that are, sabotaging you, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So important. So important. Um, I kind of chocolate, yes. And for me, it was I'm not a morning person. That was my story.
That's a good one. Yeah.
A little teddy bear when I was a kid that said I'm allergic to mornings, and so it was all of the things that were reinforcing the story.
Yeah.
But how, you know, how long did I suffer in the mornings? I suffered in the mornings because I'm not a morning person. And that was the belief. And so every time, someone came to wake me up and they were like, oh, baby, you're just not a morning person. Nope, I'm not. Right. And it just became that. Now I'm up like naturally at 4:40 every day, 4:40, 5 o'clock, like
Yeah.
naturally, because I did the work, right? Which also allows me then to exercise and make different life choices because I realized that's just a story. It's not who I am.
That's exactly it. And like one time I had a client, her story in her 50s was, I can lose 20 pounds and I gain it back. I lose
Mm,
20 pounds and I gain it back. And so therefore that is the history. She'd lose 20 pounds, gain it right back. And it took recognizing that and being able to break through that narrative. And now she's down 40. Right? But
yay.
you've got to be able to, yeah, recognize like that's just simply a story. It's optional.
Yeah. So, what are some ways that we can start recognizing our self-sabotaging behaviors before we get completely off the rails? Like, that's so important. We don't want to have to go all the way, like where, if I gain 5 pounds back, that's one thing, or if I gain a couple pounds back, but how do we keep from just going completely off the rails?
It really takes like forethought and preparation, I mean, mostly mental. And I would ask people to step back and notice, where are those instances where you tend to sabotage or start to go off the rails? What happens? So, is it when you get home from work and then you're thinking, oh, it's been a long day, I deserve a treat, and then you end up on the couch with a bottle of Chardonnay on a Tuesday night streaming Bridgerton, right? Is that your triggers at the end of the day, feeling like you've had a long, hard day, which I don't think that's a remotely a helpful thought that any of us ever have. But we have this, and oh, got it. Oh, now I need a treat. I need some down, whatever it might be. Is that it? Is it donuts in the break room? And then you start negotiating with yourself. A lot of my clients, they'll notice the thought, the excuses, just one won't matter. Just
Mm,
one won't matter. Or I can always start tomorrow. So
hmm.
are those, excuses or limiting beliefs you have that pop up? And if so, then you can start to work on those. Or is it a story about how you haven't been successful with losing weight, or about why it's hard for you? Right.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to think that I'm the special unicorn. My circumstances are different. No, they're not. We're all unique, yes, but we all experience the same challenges, the same mind drama. I used to think I was unique in that I can't meditate. My brain just goes all over the place. Well, yes, duh, that's what a brain does. I'm not special. So yeah,
Well,
it's
but
I
yeah,
am special, but not in that way. Yes.
yeah,
So
no.
it's the first step is really about recognizing where you're thinking, right? That's step one in the neurological pathway, is sabotaging your follow through. And once you do that, now I know it can feel overwhelming because you might be like, oh my gosh, there's 27 things. Well, pick the first one. Just
Mm,
pick the main one, because a lot of times it is going to be that after work, or it's that mid-afternoon. There's certain things where you're going to be able to notice this is a problem for me. Then the question is to spend some time with it and really ask, how do I flip the script? How
mhm.
can I change it to have my mindset start working for me?
Mm,
And spend some time with that. It's not about taking something negative and making it positive. We don't do that. But we can start to question these things that we've been believing, these excuses, these thoughts, these narratives, and start to open up to actually what might be true instead.
yeah, I love that. Is this going to be day one, or are we going to have the 1 day mindset? One day I will, and
Mm.
this something um that you are committed to? Do you really want this? Um, so that you can make those choices.
Yeah.
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 So good, Heather. I'm so glad to have you, also a member of the Overachievers Anonymous space, um,
Yes.
to have you in here and sharing this really great information to kind of help us to rethink and reimagine our journey within our bodies and with releasing weight. I always say that, we don't want to lose weight. We want to release it, because the stuff that we lose, we want to find. So
Let go.
let go, let it go, let it go. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have a gift or something for our folks?
Yes, yes. So what I'd love to do is give you the mindset audit cheat sheet, because then you can actually kind of walk
Yes.
through it, be guided through it, and um, give you that chance to sit with it and be asking those questions. So,
Mm,
like put audit in the comments, and I'll make sure to reach out. I'll DM you and make sure to get you that.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. That
yeah.
you want that, ladies, you want that cheat sheet, because we got to start somewhere, and having some parameters of really understanding it is so important. So important.
Well, and because again, it's the first step. It's that mindset piece that's going to lead to the other things. So it really is that foundational that foundational part that's going to help you then build on that, rather
Yeah.
than just, oh, okay, let's get rid of all the flour and the sugar and get to the CrossFit. And
Yeah.
really, yeah, we're trying so hard and we can only try so hard. So let's just step back and get to that foundational piece.
Absolutely. Heather, thank you so much for coming in and being with us today. I know that this tribe has been able to get a lot of gems and juices from this, from our talk. And if there are things, like if you have questions, you can also drop them in the chat for Heather,
Yeah.
and she can come back and answer them, and she can reach
Yeah.
out to you, because you deserve to be supported. You deserve to be supported in this journey. And Heather is one of the best in that.
Thank you, Heidi. Well, it's why you and I do this. We want to support women who are trying to be their best and make change, and we know it's not easy.
Yep, absolutely.
My
All right.
privilege.
Thank you so much for being here.
Bye, all.